Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello,
Good
Mahly. Good
afternoon.
afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here on time, and thank you so much. In the name of ECUATESOL, we want to give you a warm welcome to all of you. I'm seeing that some other teachers are connecting, but because to honor the time and our presenter today, we will start. So, this webinar is a round of webinars and sponsored by TESOL International Association in partnership with Yacha Tech University and Universidad Nacional de Educación. Remember that this round of webinars is going to be able, if you follow this webinar series, you're going to be able to receive a certificate of 40 hours. And that you just have to follow all the webinars, of course, and a part of that, like complete every registration attendance that we are providing during the webinars. No, if you are not part of ECUATESOL yet, remember our website. Here you have the QR code. The same thing, don't forget to follow us in our Instagram account, as well as the registration process. Now, remember that ECUATESOL is an association that it doesn't charge for you to be affiliate, but at the same time, being affiliate, you can have a lot of benefits. As one of those is this round of webinars, and we are planning next year to have a big event, a big international convention, and another surprise for at the end of this month. We are going to have a mini conference on March 29 to talk a little bit more about more methodologies and strategies of teaching English. So welcome all of you. The same thing, we have an ECUATESOL network in our WhatsApp group that you can follow us and you can be updated with news and information about what we are doing as ECUATESOL and our university partners as Yacha Tech University and the Universidad Nacional de Educación. Same thing about our email address in equatesol@gmail.com. If you have any doubts, any questions, or if you want to request any information or give us some suggestions, please contact us through our Gmail account. Same thing to promote. Next, on March 19, we are going to have another webinar, so separate your date. We have Professor Karina Cherres from UNAI University that is going to be providing another webinar about the lesson study strategy. And today we have the honor, and I have the honor to present a friend of mine, ex-colleague from the Universidad Nacional de Educación, Mahly Martínez. She's a Pine UNAI professor. As I mentioned before, a friend of mine, and I have the honor that she accepted to be part of this round of webinars. She's an expert in teaching education, in research as well, and now she's working as a director of the postgraduate department of UNAI University. So I have Heidi here with me. She's gonna give me the honor to introduce Mahly Martínez, and thank you so much, Mahly, for being this afternoon with us. I know that this webinar will be a complete success, and we will get a lot of insights from your presentation. So welcome again.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. Right now, I'm going to introduce PhD Mahly Martínez. She's a graduate from Francisco de Miranda National Experimental University from Coro, Falcón State, Venezuela, with a bachelor's degree. She completed her doctorate studies in education at the Libertador Experimental Pedagogical University, also in Venezuela. She developed her teaching and research career for 14 years at the Francisco de Miranda National Experimental University, specializing in undergraduate and postgraduate teaching within the educational sciences, particularly in the English education program. Her research interests include teaching first and foreign languages, discourse analysis, teaching research, and the comprehension and production of academic discourse. Since 2019, she has served as an occasional adjunct level 1 professor. In 2022, she was appointed as an auxiliary level 1 professor at the pedagogy program of national and foreign languages of National University of Education, UNAI, in Ecuador. And she's right now the coordinator of the Postgraduate Academic Office at UNAE. So let's give her a warm welcome and let's see what Mahly has prepared for us today.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me well? Yeah, very good. I'm very, very happy to be here today to see some familiar faces. Danielle, thank you very much for the invite. Heidi for the coordination and the organization of everything. I'm very happy to be here. You know, TESOL is like a very close place to my heart. I mean, I used to be in the TESOL Venezuela. I have to register here because so please, Daniel, send me like the yes, I know. So I'm very interested in joining, Daniel. So let me know what I have to do.
Today I will send the registration link to you, so it will be our
Very good.
honor to have you here with us as well.
Yeah, of course. And you know, I'm very honored to be here talking to you about this topic that is new for like as you saw how Heidi introduced me. She didn't mention anything about inclusion. I should have given the information to her. But since I am here in UNAE from 2019, I have been researching, writing a little bit, teaching, training on inclusion. And that is a subject and disciplinary area that is very, very near to my heart. Like, I think that this is not only about theories and, you know, about norms and curriculum. Is about changing the way we see our students, the way we prepare our class to our students, despite the diversities, differences, okay? So today, what I have prepared, because we have 2 hours, so I have prepared some activities, some reflections about inclusion. I don't want to bore you with a long conference about inclusion, but a way of like changing the switch in our classroom. Like, we are not experts. I know that we are maybe not psychologists, we are not language expert, like you know, these kind of doctors. We are not, but we can make the difference. Okay, so let me share with you. Give me 1 second, please. I'm going to start changing, sharing my screen now. Let's see. Okay, here. So today I have prepared for you, I would like to say not only a presentation, but a reflection on how to foster inclusion and interculturality in the EFL classroom. You know that we are in a foreign language context, which means that, and especially in Ecuador, that we have all the 14 nationalities. Besides that, we have a very multicultural context in which we have to consider for teaching English. For today, I have prepared here some objective for this workshop is to reflect on the principles of inclusive education in EFL contexts and to explore some strategies to foster intercultural competence among students, okay? First of all, I see that, well, we are 20, almost 20 here, maybe 16 teachers. And before continuing, I would like to know, like, you raise your hand, because of course we are not going to have like much time like to present everyone, yeah? But I want you to raise your hand with the reaction emoticon if you are currently teaching, like if you are teaching with any level in any level of education. Could be in primary, media, superior, bachillerato. If you are teaching, correctly teaching, can you raise your hand, please? Good. So Carlos is teaching, Axel is teaching, Daniel is teaching. Who else is teaching nowadays? Can you raise your hand? Heidi is teaching. Thank you, Heidi. Janet is teaching. Hi, Janet. Nice to meet you. So, Eric is teaching too. Sylvia is teaching too. Okay, very, very good. Thank you so much. So, let's see. I have messages. Jessica, you are also teaching. Very, very good. So, now, I want you to be very active in the chat since we are not going to have like much time to maybe participate individually. So I am going to do, during the session, I'm going to ask some questions, some reflections. So you have to be very active in the chat. Now, today we're going to, all the content of this workshop, I'm going to give you some theoretical reflection on inclusivity. What are the most new or inclusive methodologies that you can apply in your classroom? Also, we're going to discuss a little bit about intercultural competence. That is one of the competence that we have to develop in our students. And of course, I'm going to give you some teaching techniques, and we're going to discuss a little bit, if you know them, if you have applied them, to foster inclusion and interculturality in the EFL classroom. Now, I know that this is maybe a topic that you have heard before, like inclusion, but I want you, and I'm going to spice it up a little, this reflective question. When you hear the word inclusion, what do you think about? You have to think in 3 words, but this is the catch. You have to write 1 noun, 1 adjective, and 1 verb that you think when I tell you, what is inclusion? What do you think about inclusion? If you cannot do it like this linguistic game, you can just put the 3 words that comes to your mind, okay? So it was a trick, like the noun, the adjective, and the verb. So let's see, I'm looking to the chat. I'm going to give you 1 minute to think. Let's see. Okay, thank you, Daniel. So we have equality, awesome, and action. Action, that is very important. Differentiation. Kids, smart, learn. Very good, Jenny, very good. Let's see. Axel, accept, kind, everyone. Equality, development, learn. Very good, Diana. Embrace diversity and welcoming. Welcoming, that's nice. Good. And it doesn't have to be positive, okay? Because some of us, I know that some of us sometimes think that inclusion is hard for us, for teachers, you know? What are the challenges? So interaction with all the classrooms, says Jessica. We experience challenges too. So, you know, so these words, very good, very good. Let's see, okay. Eric says participation involving to incorporate. Sylvia says same opportunities, learning together. Very good, very good. Okay, let's see. So, yes, everyone here has you have some ideas on what is inclusion about? But as I was telling you, it's also a challenge, yeah? It can be challenging, it can be difficult, it can be overwhelming. When you have, and this is, for our context, like it could be in any level, at the university, at the school, at the rural school, like it can be very, very, very challenging to foster inclusivity and diversity in the EFL classroom. And today I hope that at least you feel that you can make the difference, at least one classroom at a time, like one student at the time. Here we have Carmen Villasis. Oh, she says, part of the group, the same, brilliant, very good. So now, people who knows me and who took, because I have two faces here familiar, who took differentiated instruction with me, they know that one of the goal of my class was to make them reflect. We are very clear about the context that we have in schools. We know that we have 40 students. We know that we are not doctors, we are not psychologists, right? But in any moment, like now, maybe you are facing this, later on, you're going to have students with diversities, right? And besides knowing everything about inclusion or everything about all the diversities we can find in the classroom, the most important part is to reflect. So this is a chart that I'm going to show you now that I tend to show to my differentiated instruction students. That is a subject that we have here in Pine. And I know that my students are going to be familiar with it. This is a short. It's not like a very long video. But I want you to pay attention to this short. It's only 9 minutes. Remember that we have 2 hours. So yeah. And I want you to really pay attention to it, okay? Because we're going to be discussing some things later. Let me starting to share them. Wait. Okay, here we are. Good. I'm going to start sharing the screen. And let's see if you don't need to like. Okay, there we have it. It doesn't have any sound now. I will let you know so to see if you can hear. Can you hear? No? Okay. Wait. Sure. Maybe if I take them. Share sound. There we have. Let's see. Now, yes. Very good. This is the opening of my classes of differentiated instruction. This is a short about a real student, about a real child with cerebral palsy in Argentina. As you know, Argentina has, I would say, from Latin America, between Argentina and Chile, they have like the best way of including students in the classroom. But besides all the sadness, and this is just a little call to reflect. And I want, let's see, I want to, I mean, if you saw the video, right? I want you to, I mean, maybe we can talk a little bit about, let me share this. Okay, so what is impression? What is your impression of the story? Does anybody wants to open the mic and speak a little bit? If you are not too shy to do it, let's see. Or in the chat, you can use the chat too if you are shy to share. You know, every time I see this video, I find new metaphors in the short. Like, I don't know, I think that being seen, like every time people or students, children, you know, children, they tend to be very clear, very honest about what they see. How Ian dismantled every time they laugh at him, every time they looked in a stare, not look, stare at him. I mean, and in this front, reflection is that we need the help of others. Like when we have this kind of diversities in the classroom, we need to reflect, we need to talk to our students. The parents, the role of the parents in when we have these kind of diversities in the classroom. In this case, this is a noticeable diversity, like he has cerebral palsy, has some physical diversities too, but beyond that, in the classroom sometimes we have students with invisible diversities, things that we cannot see. So in this story, they show you what is inclusion, what is exclusion, and what is integration. Those are very different terms. When we speak about inclusion, it's not to integrate people with diversity in the classroom. That is integration, like taking students, children, people, students with diversities into the same place. But then the teacher is pushed to adapt, to make a different plan for that student. That is integration. That is not an inclusive view of education. And now, well, I think this question is easier. How did you feel watching this video, this short? Can you write in the chat? Let's see. Sad, yeah. I mean, I have seen this like 4 times and I feel sad every time. Like, yeah, intrigued. How so? Hated, worried, yeah, yeah. Inspiring. The acts of, very good, Axel, the acts of kindness, understanding, making a space for others. And you know that I'm going to sound very repetitive because what I mean, in my experience at UNAI, in all the professional practice, in the visiting the schools, because I used to teach a subject about inclusion in educación básica. And, you know, when I went to the schools, the thing is that the reality hits, because, you know, you see all the methodologies and then what the ministry wants the teachers to do. But in reality, teachers are with a crowded room. Maybe they have 2 or 3 students with diversities. And by diversities, I mean not only disabilities. That is something that we are not talking about in inclusion anymore. We are talking about people first, like people with visual impairments, people with language impairment, people with physical impairment. But you know, the teachers, they want to do things. And there are small things that we can do as teachers that can help us to bring inclusion to the classroom, despite the differences, despite I know all the paperwork that high school teachers, what they have to do. But you know, as I told you at the beginning, this space is for me to convince you or to try to convince you to do small changes. As soon as you do those small changes, you're going to see the difference in your classroom, in your student, in that student that doesn't stop, that has behavioral issues, that doesn't pay attention, you know? So that is like the main goal. I didn't want you to put you in a sad mood, but you know, sometimes we need to like a little touchy moment, like a little reflective moment, okay? I don't know if anybody wants to say something before we move on.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
My name is Jenny.
Nice to meet you.
I would like to share some ideas about that. So, to answer the first question, I can say that it's a fight of this child to be integrated to a group that seems to be far physically but close because of the age. And answering the second question, I can say that finally inclusion and integration occurred. But it took some time to other children saw Ian and gave him a chance to share with them some time to play or to meet him. And answering the last question, I could say that I could recognize my reality at the school where I work because I have the opportunity to work with children with children with special needs, and yeah, it's a really hard work, but we need to be empathic and also try to teach the others how to be involved with this hard work that we as teachers have. But it's not only related with what we can do. As you said, it involves many other aspects, like parents interaction and also the other kids, because it's important that these kids with special needs can feel integrated, because most of the time they are isolated. They are alone in a corner or in a different space, and they are ignored by the others.
Jenny, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And that goes directly to our next moment of reflection. You have shared that you saw you relate your experience with this video. And now we are 60, which is very good. 60 teachers are here now. That's amazing. So I am sure that some of you here, any of the 60 teachers here, share what Jenny reflect about. So I want, like in a very short, like keywords, like one sentence idea, okay? I want you to tell me if you have faced any experience when or where inclusivity, like you have noticed some diversities in your students, maybe behavioral issues, language issues, attention issues, physical impairment, visual impairment, if you have faced that in your classes, and if you could address that or not. Just a small short reflection. Let's take just 5 to 10 minutes because I know that we are many and we have like just a few hours, and maybe I'm not going to be able to interact with you all, but I would like to hear if you have faced this challenge, like having or noticing a diversity, having a diversity students in your classroom. Let's see, I'm going to give you 2-3 minutes to start writing, okay? And remember that diversity is not only disability. That is very important that we have, that we are clear. Like, yes, disability is one of the diversities, but we have students from different backgrounds. We have students from ethnic groups. We have students from vulnerable groups. We have students that learn different. So it's not just disabilities. Okay, we have the first one, Luz. She said that she have faced a variety of students from diverse situation in public and private institution. Okay, but like, that is good. For example, Heidi, she has a student with hearing impairment, and that student couldn't afford hearing aids. So the seat from the front, you did an adaptation. So that is a tough one, like, yeah. For example, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, okay. Let's say I was reading the chat. So, Luz, you said that you have diverse citations, like what? Maybe ADHD, autism, in the spectrum, behavioral issues, socioeconomic vulnerabilities.
Sorry, can I mention now?
Yes.
quite
Of
hard
course.
for me to write. Yeah, I have had I don't know exactly what was the problem, that I had two students. They they couldn't write because in their hands were like
Right.
like a chicken feet. Yeah,
Okay. So they
yeah,
have a physical impairment,
yeah,
like a
yeah.
physical,
And
yeah. Okay.
the first one was in a private institution, so fortunately, that institution had a specific teacher for them to work directly with them. So I had three students, and it was great to work with them. Now I know that she is a businesswoman, a successful businesswoman, and
Oh,
also
really?
because she had a high economical status, so it makes also the difference, right?
Of course.
On the other hand, just 2 years ago, I had a student in a public institution where I work now with the same situation. But apart from that, she had some, like a part of the hands, she couldn't write well. She had something like in her face, she had to have something like a spider, a metallic spider on her face.
No,
And,
wow.
and she faced different surgeries, right?
Okay.
So it was new for me. Even her arms were shorter than the other people. However, she demonstrated, as she used to sit in the first in the first chair, and at the beginning I was surprised. Oh my God, how can I deal the situation? However, she surprised me because even though she had all the difficulties that she had to face, she was one of the best students in my class. And she worked harder than the other normal students that I had. So at the end, she had to work from home in aulas hospitalarias because she had to face another surgery. But at the end, it was a pleasure to see her the day of the graduation. She was there in the ceremony, and it was really surprising. I cannot say that I had to adapt many things. Of course, she was there in front. I had to be patient with her, give extra time for her presentations or for taking an exam. But she has taught me that sometimes those diverse situations that we have to face are not an obstacle to overcome those difficulties.
Nice. That is a very, very good reflection, Luz. And of course, I mean, there is so much diversity in the classroom, in the world, like, in general, but the experiences that you had, they just have like maybe a physical impairment, like they could learn in a proper way, yeah? So in that case, maybe the adaptation has to do with a more arrangement of the classroom, the seating arrangement, where to sit the students, and so forth. It's hard, of course. It's hard because, as you say, sometimes we don't even know what is happening with them. We don't know maybe how to treat them like the rest, like the ones we call normal, and they just are kids that they want to learn. Let's see, Carolina. So she has an average experience. Okay, so maybe I could slow down a little, the English a little, yeah. The fact teachers need to inform students, parents about problems. That is, the parents, those are the tricky part. Maybe it's not working with the children, sometimes is the parents. I totally agree with you. So now, knowing your experiences, yeah, and those experiences that can replicate in all of you, all the people who are here now, I'm going to I want you to see this picture. Yeah, I want you to see this picture. And this is how inclusion, I mean, it's not how inclusion began. It is the road to inclusion. Yeah, this is the historical development of inclusion. And I'm going to just give you a brief summary of this. You know, I'm talking before the 90s, 50, before that, the 1950s. In the 50s, before the 50s, if you have a physical impairment, maybe lose that students with problems in her hands, back in the 1950s, they could have been left out of the school. They were not allowed to be in the school. If you were not normal, you were not allowed to come to the school. And they have a they call it a medical perspective of disabilities. They say they are not fitted to be in a classroom. That was segregation. Like they were completely out. They didn't put a foot in a school. But then with, science studies advances, they say, okay, but this student, maybe she cannot walk, but she can talk and she can see. So maybe we can admit it here in the school, but they are going to be all of them with different disabilities, different special needs. They are going to be in another classroom. That is exclusion. That is what we know what we know on exclusion, okay? Schools start to open to different students, like, okay, they have visual impairment, people that couldn't see, people that couldn't hear, people with with languages, people with physical impairments. They could be at the school, but in another place. And then we have integration. That is, it has a more social diagnostic perspective. Okay, you have autism, and this is from the 80s, 90s, in the 80s and the 90s. Okay, so you have have autism, and even in the 2000s, I would say this view of integration, even today. I don't know, I don't want to get into public policy too much, but the view and everything that is the norm, reglamentos, everything is not inclusive, is integrative. And we can see that in the way we speak and we refer to curriculum adaptations, special needs, that is a reality. I mean, we are not trying to erase the differences or the disabilities of the students, but our system is integrative, it's not inclusive yet. And what is that view? Okay, we can have these students with differences, with diversities, with disabilities in our classroom, but we adapt the teaching a little. We change the lesson, change the activities. But we have to be careful with that because, like an adaptation in a classroom is not having all the students doing group work, for example, and having that special student coloring. That is not an adaptation, that is exclusion. You are putting them away, We have inclusion. what is the difference, as you can see this, what is the difference between the integration and the inclusion? That here, give me 1 second. I want to spot this. Like here, we still have a little barrier separating those students. And here, they are part of the class. Yes, we do some accommodations. I like that word better. Like we do some accommodation. And in fact, all the methodologies that I bring you today are thought on accommodating our student needs, not our students' disabilities or diversities, but our students' needs. No, this is how the map has changed. This is how, you know, we went from diverse, different students out of the school to trying to be inclusive, having those different students in the schools. And this is for disabilities, because, you know, in a classroom, we don't have like a sticker here that says ADHD, I have reading skill problems, I cannot write. We don't have a sticker in our forehead. We all are different. And we need to prepare our class, our materials to address those differences. I want you to be clear that inclusion is not about just disabilities. It's not about just disabilities or you know, all the problems and all the diversities that our students can have. Let's see, I have something. Yes, the UN Convention of the Rights, you know, persons with disabilities recognizes the right to inclusive education for all. And all includes people with disabilities, of course, yeah? And that is why we need to accommodate our teaching. We need to differentiate our teaching. Now, let's continue. So for me and for the UNICEF 2014, inclusion is a decision that the teacher takes, is a decision that the teacher inside the classroom can make. Like, okay, I have this student has behavioral issue, attention issues. So how can I make the experience better for that student and for all? Because the thing is that when you have ADHD students with behavioral issues, it's not only the kid which is affected, it's the entire class. They are very handy, very demanding. So we as teachers, we need to learn how to manage those situations. And then when you make that decision, that you need to change the way you teach, the way you address your students, then when you start seeing the changes, it becomes a practice. And, you know, that is one of the first steps. Like, instead of saying, I cannot do it, I have many students, it's impossible to teach that student is not going to learn. We, the teachers, were putting the barriers. But have you tried to change that situation? That is what we need to reflect about. Now, today I have prepared this, and it has to do with 3 things that are easy peasy for us, like to have an inclusive classroom, yeah? Like 2 methodologies and 1 small change in our materials that can facilitate learning, English learning in the classroom with our students, our diverse students, okay? So an inclusive classroom is going to ensure that all students, regardless their backgrounds, abilities, learning style, have equal opportunities to succeed, to learn English. For me, an inclusive classroom differentiates instruction, create accessible materials, and foster culturally responsive teaching. In this case, in this classroom, in an inclusive classroom, the students feel valued and supported. I mean, this is very, very, very important. Today, in this session, we're going to address three main principles that I think is going to help you in the practice, like to put this in practice, to see how even the energy of your classroom is going to change. So we have differentiated instruction, we have universal learning design, and I have some tips on inclusive classroom materials. I want to see like a hand up if you have heard or read or you know something about the first two, differentiated instruction and universal learning design. Have you ever heard about this before? Let's see the hands up. Luz, very good. Heidi, very good. Thank you. Okay. Any other? Okay, so I'm going to give you some key elements, key principles. I don't want you to get bored into the old, you know, theoretical, conceptual elements, but there are things that we have to understand in order to apply them, okay? So we're going to start with differentiated instruction. Carol Tomlinson, in 2000, that is more or less where the shift started from integration to inclusion. It hasn't finished. It hasn't finished yet, but it started. So, in most, Carol Tomlinson said that in most classrooms, we have some students that struggle with learning. Some of them perform well beyond the grade level. Some of them are in between. We have individuals, different individuals, 40, 35 individuals in our classroom that have different interests, different skills, different form of learning. And to meet all these diversities, we, the teachers, could differentiate the instruction. Differentiating instruction is a teaching approach where teachers diversify the way you present the content. You do the processes, the activities, you evaluate the students, and then you have to do all these elements like preparing the way of presenting the classes, preparing the way of students engaging and doing the activities, and the assessment. Based on what? On learning styles, on abilities, and on interest. And you would say, but that is so much work. It's so much work the first time you do it. Then when you see your student thriving because they succeed in the activities, because they are doing something that they like, that they are ready for, you will see the difference. Now, there are three elements on differentiating the instruction: content differentiation, process differentiation, and product differentiation. The content differentiation is what a student learns. the content, the grammar, the structures, sentences, the text, the content, the topics, greetings, going to the restaurant, everything that has to do with the content. You can provide multiple versions of reading materials. For example, Heidi told us that she had students with hearing impairment. If she is using a listening or a song, you know, she had to differentiate the content by what? By presenting maybe the lyrics in big font to that student that cannot hear. But maybe, you know, people with hearing impairment, they listen to music. If they don't sign, because maybe Heidi, your student, was not completely deaf, but if if he or she didn't sign, they can feel the beat in the table, in the floor, you know, and they can read the lyrics of the song. So providing multiple versions of reading material, for example, if you know that you have students who are more proficient than others, you can use the same text, but adapted, yeah? You could use audiobooks, summaries for students, for example, with attention deficit, summaries, because they have problem concentrating and reading long pages of text. You could use text with pictures, with animations, you know, with pictures, like to give an extra stimuli to the students to get focus. Using visual support, realia, scaffolding techniques to help diverse learning. Like how do you present the content? That is differentiating the content. Now, the process differentiation is how students learn. For example, offering, you have your content. Let's see, foods. That is a topic, a general topic, yeah? So what are they going to do with that content? You can offer different activities for the same content, like some students the students who are ready to talk and they are ready to present, you can give them a role playing. Maybe you have some other students that are shy and they are good at drawing, so you can ask them to do graphic organizers or any other visual representation. Peer activities, hands-on activities, and allow the students to choose how they are going to practice English. You can offer them different options for them to practice more of, like speaking, writing, acting, and the differentiating the product. How the students demonstrate to you that they have learned. You can let the students to present the knowledge in multiple formats: written, spoken, digital, drawings, like different formats, and allow flexible assessment. For example, maybe a student that has some attention issues, he's not going to be very well at essays exam form, but they're going to be very good maybe in interviews. So that student that struggles by doing long readings, long essays, you could be more flexible about assessment and then do an oral interview. Yeah, so you can give them choices, and that gives a very different vibe in your classroom. Now, So you have here what you can differentiate. You can differentiate the content, the process, and the product, yeah? But considering what? You can consider, give me 1 second, okay. You can differentiate the content by interest, by readiness, and by learning profile. Interest, how do you differentiate the content by interest? You are going to do a reading practice. And imagine that you will have a project for a reading club. And then you allow the students to choose a gender and a book, or to propose the genders that you're going to read, and then propose the title, them, like the students, about because of their interest, okay? The readiness, it has to do with the ability, the skill the student have. It has to do with Vygotsky concept of zone of the proximal development and all these things if the students is ready to learn. But you have to know the level of your students. You have to know the difficulty level that they can handle in any activity, written or spoken, listening or in reading, and the learning profile. I know that, studies there about multiple intelligences, learning styles, and all this, it has to do on the best way. Those have to do with the best way the students learn. For example, I am very auditory and visual. I need to listen and I need to write to organize my ideas and to learn better. I have a little bit of attention issues. So if you give me many instructions orally, I'm not going to be able to follow them. I have to write them down. Yeah? So we all have diversities, and we know how we learn best. So giving the students the opportunity to choose what they want to present, or let them choose by the interest. I know in the classroom we have a curriculum plan, we have a class plan, we have topics to follow. I know, but there are small spaces when you can bring in a little bit of autonomy, decision of your students based on their interest, if they are ready and for the activity, for the content, and if they know how they learn the best. For example, how to put this in action. Let me see the chat. The form. Okay. They're asking for the form, maybe in the chat. So a little example, a short example. A writing, everybody here have taught daily routines. Verb to be, daily routine, I wake up, I have breakfast, yeah, So if the student doesn't know verb to be, like manage verb to be, you can hand them, give them a worksheet with sentence frame for students, give them a little tip on the grammatical structure, yeah? Maybe a graphic organizer with, the routines for the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. For visual learners, colors, images, the sun rising, the sun setting down, a peer discussion before writing for the students who need oral practice first. So there are many things that you can do to differentiate the instruction. Now, I don't know if you have questions about this before we move on, if you have doubts if there is something that you are not following or is not entirely clear. Yeah? Okay, good. I'm here. Any question, you can put it in the chat. You can ask, okay? If you have any doubts about the information we are checking. Now, what about universal design learning? Is UDL. This is the newest, one of the newest, because, you know, with differentiated instruction is one of the, it's now a trend, you know, it's very trendy, this UDL. It is a framework for inclusive teaching, not only for teaching English, okay? Differentiated instruction, if I am honest, I have seen a lot of research on language learning, but UDL is like for everything, yeah? And you can see some relatables with differentiating instruction. In this, they make like a very specific, or they relate specifically with the class practice, like designing materials and lessons. How do you design your lesson? UDL comes from an architecture principle, yeah? When you eliminate, like, it comes from architecture, from the architecture discipline, I mean. You know, nowadays in buildings, in schools, we have to grant physically, I'm talking about the building, okay? We have to grant access to our public, students, teachers, parents, to places. So we use architect, they started to build ramps, like for people that have wheelchairs, mobility. So in a literal way, UDL has to do with erasing barriers, like eliminating the barriers for our students to learn, yeah? To grant them access to knowledge, if we take that from the architecture perspective. So the UDL, it is a teaching approach that designs, where the teacher pays attention to designing materials and lessons to be accessible from the start, rather than adapting them later for individual students. It is an inclusive methodology because, yes, it considers diversities, disabilities, but they are, I mean, they are adapted from the start. Like, the classroom is ready for students, for all the students. That is the best metaphor. The classroom is ready to welcome all students with disabilities or no disabilities. That is like how I can put it in a very simple way. So this is a very transformative framework for English as a foreign language instruction. We move from the beyond traditional one-size-fits-all, like the students has to fit the class. Instead, we made the class for all students. So they have, I mean, the way we organize our lessons and when we design our materials, they have to embrace all the diverse needs and the learning styles of all the students, including the ones with disabilities. Okay, thank you for your, in the chat that everything is clear. Now, if you see the principles of universal design of learning, it has more or less the same vibe of differentiating instruction. So multiple means of representation, how the content is presented. You use different ways of presenting the information. You can use text, audios, videos, images to explain concept, grammar structures, vocabulary. Very important, vocabulary. Some of you said that some of your students have a problem of lexical retention in the chat when we started. So how you present, how can you help to retain vocabulary? How are you going to present that vocabulary? I remember one thesis from one of our students in Pine that they have a strategy called about coloring, about colors, and using colors to improve in flashcards and colors. There was a strategy, I'm not sure now, but they actually proved that this strategy improve vocabulary retention. So, these have been highly studied, scientifically studied. There are theses, articles, researches about those two methods, the UDL and the differentiating instructions. For example, using transcript, captions for videos. For example, in the case of Heidi, the students with hearing impairment, she could use a video with the lyrics, the caption that the students can read. Use scaffolding. As you can see, these methods are very constructivist. Vygotsky said scaffolding is a main strategy to take the students to the other levels, starting with word banks, word list, sentence starters, to support struggling learners. This has to do, if we mix everything, like, for example, using a mix of text, audio, and video has to do with, if we connect this with differentiating instruction, it has to do with learning styles. Provide transcript for videos and captions has to do with learning styles. Use scaffolding has to do with readiness, if the student is ready or not to learn. Give real world, culturally relevant examples to keep students motivated. Why is this in, I would say, burgundy red? Because it has to do with intercultural competence. So I'm highlighting now some elements that had to do with intercultural or cultural competence. That is something that we should know when we are in a context with multicultural background, with vulnerabilities and so forth. Allow self-paced learning where students can review lessons at their own speed. We have students that are very fast, but we have students that have some issues and they have their own pace. We have to allow that. Sometimes it's very difficult if we don't really know our audience. It's really difficult for us, like, for example, setting an activity for 20 minutes. And maybe 3 groups are ready in 20 minutes, but some other groups could take a little bit longer. So in our reality, we need to adapt our times. Group activities with, of course, with our, I don't want to say supervision, but with us being there for the student, establishing roles, making sure that everyone is working. And that has to do with means of engagement, how the student interact with the content that you can relate to process in differentiating instruction. And multiple means of action and expression, how the student demonstrate the learning, that is basically differentiating the product. So as you can see, they are very alike, like they are giving you the conceptual steps for you to make your classroom more inclusive. For example, you let the students choose between writing, speaking, or drawing to demonstrate understanding. You provide options for speech-to-text tools for students, for example, motor difficulties. The case of Luz that she said now, of course, maybe because she said that the student now is like a very successful entrepreneur. And I guess that it was some time ago where we don't have many, we didn't have many technological tools to integrate in the classroom, but now you can dictate. And, you know, even WhatsApp can transcribe audios. And then you can dictate your text. So you don't even need to write anything anymore, you know, like writing. So that could be. And offer low stress assessment. You know, I am a fan, and people who, you know, students here, now teachers, colleagues that are here with me, I don't mind to do open book quizzes. I really don't mind. Group presentation. You know, open book quizzes are a win-win, a win-win. You ask the students to prepare study materials, and you tell them that they can use that material in the exam, and they are going to research, they are going to read, they are going to write, they are going to prepare the material, and they are going to study, and they are going to learn. And then the quiz, you know, is the medium. It's like the medium to get them interested in preparing the material, you know? Like, let's be flexible, you know, in our classroom. And I don't mean just classroom with students with disabilities. We need to consider all the diversities, even the ones we cannot see, yeah? I don't know if you have any question, any doubt, you can put it in the chat, you can ask. We're doing good. That's good. That's good. So, give me, for example, here, how to apply UDL principles in your day-to-day classroom. Teaching, let's see, we have a question, I think. Okay, thank you. So, teaching vocabulary on food and cooking. You can use real objects and video, pictures to teach new words. You can give the students to use those words where they can create a recipe card. Like maybe some of your students they like to cook, they can give you a recipe. Role play and restaurant. Maybe drawing a meal with the ingredients and the vocabulary you are presenting. Offering digital flashcard with audio for auditory learners and word maps for visual learners. You know, nowadays, I know that there are many many challenges with technology, but you know, we have Kahoot, we have now, you know, the pandemic have changed the way we teach, and all the tools that we have now, these kind of things, online trainings, online conferences, online meetings, we couldn't do it before. Like we had like Skype, I remember Skype, but it was not used. We were not used to use them. But now we have so many tools that I'm sure Danielle and Heidi, they are working, maybe finding a tech teacher to give you all the tools that we can actually use, and we can actually improve the experiences of our students. And imagine a digital flashcard with audio. So yeah, for students watching the picture, the image, and listening at the same time. So I mean, there are many ways of differentiating the instruction. Okay, now give me 1 second. 1 second. Now I want to, I think it started to, yeah, finish. Now, listen. So we just have half an hour to go. And what about accessible and inclusive classroom materials? This is the third part of this part of the presentation. We have, how can we make our classroom material more inclusive? Language accessibility, cultural representation, and multimodal learning support. All the material we use, we know that some schools, they have books, textbooks, you know, and the curriculum is very tight, like we have many units to cover during the school year. In language centers, I know that you have to cover 14, 12 units, you know, and sometimes it's very hard for us as teachers to start designing or creating our own material. However, I invite you to check these tips for you to implement in your material. So in language accessibility, that has to do with readiness, if the student has the skill or not to read the material you're giving them. You need to provide material with multiple reading levels, okay? You need to use clear fonts and high contrast color, those for people that has visual impairments. You can include translations or multilingual glossaries for English learners, if that is your case. For example, I know that rural English teachers, they are in a context where they don't only speak Spanish, but they speak Quechua, they speak Schwartz. So a glossary of having all the languages, you know, the glossaries with list of vocabularies, translation, that is going to be helpful. The one in Burgundy, cultural representation. It has to do with what I'm going to explain you shortly in a minute. Has to do with communicative competence, like cultural competence. Use diverse names, cultural references, and examples in text and exercises. You know, I learned English with textbooks back then, like in the 90s, like it seems like a long time ago. And we had all these textbooks with or Britain references or American references. White people, pop stars from the United States or from Britain, but we didn't have like people like us, you know, like people that look like us with our context. So we need to start including people like us, like the way we look from the places we are in our teaching materials. Include the stories, idioms, role models from different cultures. Remember that when we learn a language, we're learning the culture. But English language is not only American or British. We have Australia, we have Guyana, we have all the countries that speak English as a first language that are worthy to, you know, to review and to be studied. And avoid stereotypical or Western-centric materials. For example, I mean, it has like this, because, you know, I learned English and I love all the tradition that has to do with the language, yeah? As Heidi said, I'm from Venezuela, And of course, I have my culture and my own traditions, but I love English music. I love English fashion. I love English movies. I love Thanksgiving, Halloween. Like, when you learn a language, you also have to learn the culture. So it is like you have to be equal. Like, yes, don't just use everything about the main countries, but also you could speak in English about our own traditions, like the Inti Raymi, for example. See? So we can bring that to our English word. Yeah? And the multimodal learning support using audiobooks, subtitles, a speech test, Braille version. We are here at United, we have like a lab with Braille station when they print the books. It's amazing. It's amazing. I know that this is something that not all teachers have access to, but for example, you can allow your students to submit assignments by audio, writing, and so forth. Okay. Oh, wait, what happened? Okay, give me 1 second. This stop. Okay, so let's see. So now, talking about culture, yeah, I want to share a little bit one short activity that you can, if you have a cultural diverse classroom, that you have students from different economic backgrounds, from different ethnicities, from different countries, yeah? You can bring some culture into your classroom, okay? And this is a little activity, yeah? It is called cultural snapshots, yeah? And this is an activity where you can ask your students and yourself to show an object, to bring to the class an object, a picture, or to describe something that belongs to your place, to your culture, to your, to your being, yeah? So I'm going to do it a little, briefly, yeah? So these are the sand dunes from my hometown. This reminds me to my city when I was a kid and I went to the sand dunes in Spanish. Well, we call it in Spanish in my city, we call it médanos. Those are known as desert, yeah? It's the Sahara desert. So in this place reminds me home, yeah? I am from Joro, that is the name of my city, and we have this vast sand dunes in our city. People they go there to see the sunset, which is very beautiful, or to do a sport. So did you know that, I mean, besides the Palmira, you have a desert too. So did you know that here in South America, we have another desert that is like the Sahara? Like, look, did you know that? So you can bring a little bit of culture, presenting yourself, giving yourself, and major students, because you don't know, like, yeah, I mean, we try to know our students, but we don't really know them. So if we bring this to the classroom, it's going to be a powerful experience because they are going to present things that are close to home and to the heart. And that is going to open eyes and, and embrace cultural diversity. Now, one of the things, this is very short because we are finishing. how can you embrace those cultural differences? Because your students can come from cultural backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds with unique traditions, values, and communication styles. So let's avoid assumptions or stereotypes based on culture, religion, and nationalities. I know that now we, the Venezuelan people, we are very famous for not following the rules, and then we are loud and we speak like this, you know, that is stereotypical because we are not all like this. And people from Colombia, people from Peru, and then we have, because we cannot erase that, we have those stereotypes in our minds. But we are teachers, we are role models. We have to try to, not to pass those stereotypes to our students. And we need to foster respect. Because, for example, some students may come from cultures where questioning or speaking up in class is not the norm. I know that my voice is very loud. And then sometimes I can sound like if I am angry. And I know people, for example, from Ecuador, you tend to have a more quiet voice and a more quiet, way of talking. So we need to meet in the middle. We need to compromise. We need to accept that everyone is different. Now, what do we have to do with this? Fostering awareness, curiosity. You were very curious when I showed you that picture. Luzma was like, oh, So openness, recognizing the cultural differences, to be willing to learn about other people that are different from us, from other cultures, and accepting and valuing different ways of thinking, behaving, and communicating. Accents, of course. We are going to keep our accents, yeah? Yes, we can try to, I like more like American accent, and sometimes I use British words, but you can see my accent, and that shows my culture and my background. So don't be afraid of having an accent. When you have an accent, it's because you know another language. Now I have a daughter that she's 25 now, and she speaks French, and then she speaks Spanish and English with a French accent. When you have an accent, it's because you are learning another language. You have another language. So that is something that we need, to foster in our classroom, yeah? Now, I don't know what is happening with my presentation. We are almost done, guys. I'm just two slides away, okay? So here is a list. I'm going to share this presentation so you can have it and you can review it. I don't know if Heidi and Daniel, you have like a list and you can share the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Very good. How to promote interculturality. And I'm sure that some of you have done this, like the food festival. I love that. Like doing food festival with local and international food is a very good opportunity to know your students, to explore other cultures. Cultural exchange discussions from different cultures, multicultural storytelling, like an intercultural storytelling. Do you know how many myth, folk tales we have in Ecuador that we can translate or to present in English for them? Like, we have tons. They don't have to come from other places. They could be from here. The intercultural role play, like to simulate real life scenarios with different cultural norms. For example, free people from Korea, they don't usually shake hands, they bow. And In Venezuela, we kiss people, like all of them, like, how can we kiss? And in formal settings, we shake hands. But I have noticed here that you don't shake hands. Sometimes when I meet someone, like, I don't know, new, I try to shake the hand and then they kiss. So, you know, all these differences. The multilingual class posters, how, you know, we use like proverbs, idioms, sayings, you know, the sayings in Spanish and in English, they are very different. We can explore that. Of course, this bias awareness now with migration, guys. I know I'm not the only country coming. I mean, my people is not the only citizens coming to Ecuador, going to the United States. Ecuador also has like a big history in migration. So we need to stop stereotyping citizens, yeah? Because we have been here, but also you have been there in Spain, in the United States. You know how it is, how hard it is to adapt. So we need to be a little bit more empathic and to transmit that to our students. You know, that is very, very important. Now, about materials for interculturality, we have diverse inclusive textbooks, visual and digital resources. Remember, don't use just white suquitos, you know, in your teaching materials. Put people from other nationalities. To adapt the assessment options, of course, it has to do with inclusion too. And to design culturally responsive lessons, like incorporating personal experiences into writing and speaking. They can create awareness, fostering respect from the differences. Yeah, we need to, and I'm thinking, I have 2 hours here speaking, and I'm thinking on the word sensibilizar, and I can find it. Can you help me, Heidi or Daniel? Sensibilizar. We need to sensibilizar our teachers. I don't know if that is a word. I mean, I think there is no translation. That should be a different word. But
I think it's raise awareness.
Raise awareness, yeah. So we need to raise awareness to be more sensitive about these issues that maybe we are not living them, we have no disabilities maybe, or maybe we have, because there are 57 people here, so any one of us could have a diversity, and, you know, be sensitive about these issues. Now, to close up, first of all, for me, you have to encourage your students, if you have diverse students, to share personal experiences from their cultures. You have to incorporate multicultural material, books, songs, media in EFL lesson, not only from America or from United States or Britain or England, but from other countries, so they know the differences. You have to create a safe space for discussion about cultural differences. You have to model. You are the model. You have them. I mean, that is you, that is us, to model curiosity and openness by asking to your students thoughtful questions. And you need to teach your students how to manage cultural misunderstandings with empathy. See? So that is on that. How to achieve an inclusive classroom? You have to set clear expectation. As I told you at the beginning, we are not experts, we are not psychologists, we are not doctors. Yeah, maybe we cannot diagnose our students, but we can tell, like we can see that there is something different in some students. We need to promote respect and acceptance on the cultural differences, using an inclusive language. That is something that is really important. provide accommodation, differentiations, yeah, incorporate different cultural perspective and the participation of the parents. I know that this is the hardest part. Like dealing with the parents, I know is the worst. I myself at the university, I have had like 1 or 2 parents at my door. So don't think that it doesn't happen at the university. It does. And you have to reflect on your practice. Maybe something is not going to work right away with your students, but you can assess, improve, and go back. Remember that the teaching is a profession where we are learning all the time. And to close, now this is the last one. When you have an inclusive classroom, the students feel safe, they feel valued, and they feel respected. When the material reflects the diversity of the students and their identities, you are fostering cultural diversity. When the lessons are flexible and adaptable to the different learning styles and abilities, you're going to have a very happy classroom, I would say. Technology and assistive tools, they are the best now. We didn't have that technology back in the 90s. And teachers, because I include myself in that, we always have to be culturally responsible and avoid stereotypes and bias in our classroom discussion. We need to be the models. We are the models for the new generation. So with this, inclusion is not erasing the differences or diversity, but embracing them as opportunities to grow, to connect, and to see the world through a richer lenses. I had a friend that I worked with in my first year here at the University at Unai, and she told me that inclusion is looking the world with, you have to change your lenses, you have to change your glasses. And that is going to be all for today. Thank you so much. I think that I took more, I have 5 minutes left. So if there is any closing, any ideas, anything that you want to share with me, one day at a time. We made a decision to change one, and we take it one day at a time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mahly, for this amazing presentation. I think that now everyone here is inspired to make a change in their classrooms. I think you achieved your objective. So we really want to thank you for this amazing presentation. I don't know if anyone has any questions, comments, or anything you would like to say to Teacher Mahly, because believe me, she knows a lot. So if you have questions, she's the girl you can go for. You can write on the chat or you can raise your hand. Well,
I think everything is clear.
Yeah, everything's clear. Well, guys, don't forget to register your attendance in the link that is in the chat. Again, thank you, Teacher Mahly, for this amazing presentation. I think that we now have a clear perspective of what inclusion is, and that is not only about disabilities, but also about the interculturality that we have in our classrooms. And I invite each and every single teacher that is here to look further. Sometimes we don't notice these differences until we begin to talk to our students. So
exactly.
Let's make a change. And also, I want to take this opportunity to invite you. Teacher Mahly, she is the coordinator of the postgraduate office at UNAE. So Mahly, this is your time to promote the master's program.
How did I lose this opportunity? I was about to disconnect. No. We have an amazing offer now. Our Pine Master Program is open. It has like a very good price. It costs like 2,100 something, I'm going to give you the link of our UNAE academic offer. We are now registering for our second cohort in the Pine major. And also we have, masters on technology, on inclusion. We have a master on inclusion and neurodiversity that is going to be open on April. So I really invite you to check the offer. We have like a payment agreements with the students, nine shares, no interest. So I really invite you to check our academic offer. Thank you, Heidi, for reminding me. This is very important. Yeah.
Yes, from ECUATESOL, we really want our teachers to be the best English teachers in the world. And I think online master's programs are one of the ways you can take it. So again, thank you so much, Teacher Mahly. And thanks everyone for being here. It has been a very productive afternoon. And we'll see you on the next webinar that will be on March. We have a webinar for tomorrow, but don't forget that on March 19, we have another webinar with teacher Karina Cherres. We will send all the info to our WhatsApp group, as well as with teacher Mahly's presentation and the UNAE Master's Program link. So it has been a pleasure.
Hello.
Have you all here?
Hi. I don't know if it is you or me. Hello.
I think it's my internet.
Okay. No, thank you so much for the invite. Yeah, it was really nice.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Nice to meet you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Goodbye. My name is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, my name is William.